name's Eric Joss, and we're going to be doing some videos here. My son Daniel and I are doing a restore on a 1966 Chev C10. Actually, it was a 3/4 ton that we're now converting. We're not professionals, and I noticed on YouTube when I was searching for some information on how to do some of this stuff, a lot of the videos were not family friendly. No offense to those guys, but a lot of them, there were a lot of language that if a father and son wanted to watch a video, it probably wasn't okay to do. So basically what we're going to do is show you some of what we're doing. It may not be the right way, it may not be the best way, but let's face it, we're making it up as we go along here. So we've never done this before. Basically we started out with a very rusty 1966 Chev truck. Here's what we have for a frame. We've had it sandblasted and then powder coated. We've chopped it down to a short bed from a long bed truck. We've replaced the cross member, replaced that to the new style suspension. We've added new braking system, disc brakes. So we're happy with that. We're excited. We're gonna have a little better stopping power. Like I said, we've never done this before, so just bear with us. Okay. This is our original cab, and the underside of this cab is pretty much shot. He's going to show you a little bit of the damage. You can see the floor in a lot of places on this cab. And basically, we've decided that it is no good. So we are going to take the roof off this cab, which is what we're doing today. This cab has a good roof. This Texas cab has a good bottom. Obviously, they don't have the salt there. But up around the roof, there was some lights up here, and basically they leaked and allowed all of this up in here to be rotted. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make our original cab, the donor, and then we're going to chop it basically right here and then down in here, and you'll see he's going to come around to the back. You'll see that we marked it down here, and then we are drilling out all the spot welds through this area, back up around, through, and then the same on the post here. Now the reason that we're doing it that way, and again, this may not be the right way to do it, but it's the best way we could think of, is down here, everything's a single layer. Plus, what you're really only going to see of the truck is this much right here. If we went higher up in here, we get into the headliner of the cab, so we have 2 layers of metal that we'd have to fix. Plus it's right where it's going to be seen. When you come around the back, it's behind the seats and the box of the truck. So really the body work doesn't have to be that great on what we're going to do. So that's why we chose there. Again, we're going to find out. Okay, now one of the things obviously if you're going to cut your cab apart is keeping your door the same way that it was, the opening. Me being a carpenter, I understand when a door doesn't fit right. With wood, it's no problem. I just shave some off and it's no problem. But with metal, obviously there's a little bit more of a problem. So we want to keep the integrity of the door opening the same. So basically what we did is we made a template. Now there's one for the driver's door, D, one for the passenger's door. Basically what we did is took a piece of 1/4 inch masonite, and we made the curve on these back pieces because the side of the truck is not straight. It's got a little bit of an arch to it. If you got one of these, you already know that. So we made that arch and then cut out, we basically put it on the inside and cut out to the inside of this flange where the seal goes, the door seal. Once we had that, that gave us the shape of this whole piece of plywood. Then we attached these little blocks that overhang to meet basically against, if you want to zoom in a little bit right here, it meets up into the doorway here. And so that it basically fits in. You'll see it here. I'm going to set this into the doorway. And there you have it. Now, you can see these hang over, and I can actually screw this to the flange, and that'll hold it in place. You can see we've got a nice tight fit. What that is that's a template then. Once we cut this off, this roof off, this whole assembly off, and we put it on the other truck, we have a template that will fit. We can actually use this to set the roof down on top of. Okay, now when I was measuring this out on where I was going to cut, you can see here's my line I'm going to cut. And I also am going to pay attention when I cut the donor cab. I'm going to be cutting on this side of the line because that way my wheel is going to be lower. On the other cab, on the good cab, I'm going to be cutting here. That'll make up the difference of the cuts. And I'll have more cab to work with when I go over on the good cab. But you can see this pencil mark here. This is how I determined the height. I used this template also to know how high up the door I was going to go. So basically, when I marked out both cabs, this template was how I marked where I was going to start my cut here and come around, and then also up here the same thing on the post. You can see the mark. So I basically just picked a spot on this template and then marked out on the cab from there. Because now when I take this template over to the other door, it works out to be the same thing. You've got the same line. And so now I should be identical in the same spot on the post because I'm hitting up here. So this distance can't change. And when there's no cab up here, none of the cab, the roof up here, I'll be able to set the new roof right on top of this to set it to where I need to weld it. That's the theory. We'll let you know how it turns out. Okay, now, when you're gonna cut this cab apart, what's gonna happen is you're gonna lose all of the integrity of the structure of this thing. If we just cut the roof off, because this cab is in such bad shape up in the front, it could just literally fall apart. So basically, if he comes in here with the camera, you'll be able to see that we put some bracing. Now we don't care about this cab. Basically, once we get the roof off from it, we may save some of the dash and some of the things in there, maybe make something for the wall, out of that old dash. But, we just basically want it to stay together until we can get it apart. So we just put a couple of braces here, angle braces, to keep the front end from tipping over. If you come over to the good cab, the one that we're going to try in the Texas cab, you can see that we did a little bit more bracing. We've got it a little better braced, some X bracing, and we don't want this thing to get all out of shape. So we may not have our bracing complete in here. We're not sure yet. We're going to kind of play it by ear when we cut apart the old cab. That one's in terrible shape. We're going to see how that one racks, if it's going to, when we do actually take the roof off of it. The other thing that you need to know is that because we're cutting it where we are, you'll see there's a whole bunch of holes here that have been drilled out. This was done with a spot weld removal tool. I got one on Eastwood from Eastwood Company. They're a very good drill bit. Works great. Basically it separates the two pieces. My son Daniel drilled out all those. Didn't take very long at all. Then on the inside of the cab you got to do some more. You'll see the old gas tank bracket. There was several here. He had to drill out all these to separate the back from this bracket. Now for the most part we're not going to need that. We've relocated the gas tank to the back of the truck, and so we'll be cutting off some of this stuff to get it out of the way of the new seats. We're going to put bucket seats in it. So we hopefully have everything ready. We're going to cut the top off. We'll let you know how it turns out. Okay, here we are, starting to cut the roof off the cab, and we've ran into some issues right off the bat. As we started to cut, obviously, you can see we've already cut through right here on our rear post, and basically what happened was this metal started to shift. So basically what we did to correct this is we put our panels in, like I showed you earlier, and just screwed them right into the channel where the weather strip goes. So now basically the integrity should stay there. Plus, as you can see now, the roof is sitting on this piece of wood. So when we do finally get it all cut off, it'll sit down onto those panels. Okay, this is the last cut on this A-post. You're gonna notice the Sawzall is gonna come out below the line. I really don't care. I wanna be able to grind that up to the line. I wanna leave myself plenty of material. So, here we go. Now, you can see, we've got all the cuts made. This cab is basically just sitting here. We made kind of a funny thing. We tried to pick up the top, and then we realized because we screwed it here, 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 and here, the two halves are still mated because of our panel. So we got to take our panel out. So yeah, it's just one of those bloopers. So, well, we're going to undo those screws and then lift the roof off. Okay, ready? Yeah. Oh, no problem. That's things. Okay, set her down. Get her on the front. Put that thing under it. Yep, you got it? Yep. You got wiring machine with it? Yeah, that's the. There we go. Do the center. Alright, left and right. Center. Yep. One towards the front. That's where I am. I'm at the front. Okay, there. You're on. Beautiful. That's what's left. One roof. Well, today's the big day. We're going to take the top off from our good cab with the bad top. We're going to take this top off, and then we're just going to basically throw it away. As you can see, we've got our marks here that we've set up from to match the other cab, and we're going to be cutting it. You'll get to see some video of that. We've tried a couple different tools. We've tried an air tool, and then we tried a cheap like a jigsaw type air tool. It didn't work very well, and then we got a nicer snap-on one, and that one just blasts right through it. So you'll get to see that as we're cutting it. What we're doing though is we're leaving a little extra on our tape line here, because we're going to try and fit this together. We want a little extra metal so that when we put our top from the other truck on here, we can mark it and have a nice tight joint when we go to weld it, because obviously big gaps are not a good thing. So we're looking forward to getting this thing chopped over. I'm a little bit excited, and so we'll keep you posted. We're going to be drilling out some of the spot welds, and I've got this spot weld removal tool. And basically what it is kind of like a milling machine cutter. It's got a spring-loaded center tip, and basically that's spring-loaded, so as you start to drill, you'll push and it'll actually retract inside the bit, and that keeps you centered. And then the teeth will cut it, and then when you get right to the end of the bit of the hole, through the first layer of metal here, that spring-loaded center punch is going to push, and you'll actually see the metal pop. Here's a couple that are already done here. You can see, and basically the metal just kind of moves out with the drill bit. And so we'll drill one here, and hopefully it'll give you a good view here. So let's see what happens. We've already center punched the center of the spot weld. Now I'll just drill it. Basically what should happen is you'll see the paint separate. There. You can see it basically, now we have the paint right here just kind of separated right out. And that's basically all there is to it. Okay, well, we've got everything cut. We think we're all set. So we're just going to basically lift this off of here and lay it down on its back. We don't care about this part. So it's just basically just getting it off of here. So, all right, let's see if we're ready to go. Ready? Okay, we've got the top cut off, obviously, and now we're dealing with this A-post. And as you can see, the post is hollow, but there's a piece of metal on the inside here. And the problem that you're going to have is how do you weld that? You know, when you're looking at the outside, you can't see it when you just set the other piece on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the inside down here a little bit lower, giving us access. And we want to make a patch panel out of the existing top that we're going to throw away. So if you look over here, what we're doing is basically cutting this little chunk out, but obviously it's all spot welded in. So we're just grinding out the welds, and then we're going to use this piece to make our patch panels so that we can weld that inside. And so now we have this all pretty much drilled out, and I'm just going to pop it out, and there you see we'll have a piece that we can then drop right in here and use it to cover once we have this cut out to be able to weld that flat spot. We got this post that we are making preparations on to get it ready to weld to. And as you can see, we've notched it so that we can get in here to weld. We come around this way, you can see that. Now, we also removed, you'll see over on the other side, you had the rain gutter here. We took that right off because that exposed all of this crud and corrosion underneath there. You can see this is just nasty with rust. So if you're going through all this work, you might as well remove those rain gutters because it's just going to rust out right along here. You'll get it all painted up and then the rust is just going to creep back. So make sure those rain gutters are pretty easy pieces. You can maybe buy them or have them made up. You can bend them up. So it's definitely worth removing them. We've got being prepped, ready to put the old roof back on it. And we just thought we'd clean this edge up and prime it. Then we did the same thing, primed behind the cab back wall so that where you're never going to be able to get at it again, so it's never painted from the factory, so that's why it was rusting. We're also preparing, getting ready so that we can weld, grinding off all the paint. With our first test fit. That worked really good. That went well. I'm coming back here, man. I thought he had it sitting up there and it started going his way. Okay. And it's on there now. Okay, we've set the cab on. We're about to make our first spot weld. You can see we got a nice tight gap here. We're got our little pliers, or our little pry bar here to hold it. And now we've got a nice tight gap here. We're going to weld just to tack it in place and then bring all four corners in. This shows how we made access to weld that inner piece of metal, that brace. You can see we got the metal prepped, we're about ready to weld it up. We finished the A-post, then come around to the back. You can see we've got that all welded in and ground in. It's just a lot of tedious work. You'll see down the back here, we're priming it once we get it where we want it, so just so things don't rust. This cab is going to be going in and being sandblasted. Well, actually it'll be bead blasted. We're going to have them use bead blasting rather than sand. It'll hopefully not warp it. But you can see, got all our spot welds put back together. Here's the side where we're in the process of. And we're not professionals, like I said, so some of you body professionals are probably laughing at what you see here. Our welds aren't the best, but we're getting her done.
Got our two halves of our cab together here. It's all welded together and everything, and turned out really nice for us. All the seams came together really nicely. We got our A-post all welded up here and basically ground out to smooth and everything, as smooth as we're going to get it for now until after it's sandblasted. That turned out really nicely. Our seams mated well, and we have our patch for the old gas tank there, because the filler cap for the gas tank was behind the seat, was the gas tank, so we had to get rid of that because we're relocating the tank to the rear end of the truck. And we have our seam right here. Came out really nice. You can hardly even see it. Obviously the primer covers it up a little bit, but it turned out really nice. We had a little bit of warping going on when we were welding on this seam here, but we took the hammer set and pounded that out, and it's pretty much flat again, so that turned out really well. Got all of our spot welds taken care of down here on this edge. Turned out really nicely. Came together really well. The other side here with our seam, all finished up. And the other A-post here, smooth, and our seam came out really nicely. Everything is fixed together really well. So, really happy with the way everything turned out.
I'd just like to take a minute to share something with you that I've found really helpful in my life. You know, this old cab has a lot of rust, corrosion, and corruption in it. And we're going to find out just how much there is when we sandblast it. But just like this cab, we have corruption in our lives. You see, there's a God in heaven who created us. And because we're sinners, every time we sin, we pick up some more rust and corrosion and dents and wear and tear. And because we have that in our lives, we can't be with God in heaven when we die. But you know, He knew that we had problems. He knew that we were going to have wear and tear. He knew that we were going to mess up. And so He made a way for us to be right with Him. And that's through Jesus Christ. He sent His Son, His only Son, to be here on earth, live on earth as God on earth, and live a perfect life. And then He died on a cross and shed His blood, because God said, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission. Now, why He said that, I don't know. I'm not God. But what I do know is that He loved you and I enough to send His only Son to die on a cross for us. And all He asks is that you accept Him, accept Christ as your personal Savior. Now, it's not fancy words, it's not religion, it's not going to church. It's simply coming to the fact that you have corruption in your life. And then it's just as simple as saying, Lord, I'm a sinner. Will you save me? Just ask Him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. That's what it says in the Bible. You see, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what the preacher says. It matters what God says. And if you'll do that today, you can know that when you die, you'll spend an eternity with Him in heaven.